We're recording.
Good evening, and welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting for January the 5th, 2023. First, a couple of order businesses. We'd like to welcome a couple people to our board tonight. First of all, our newest member, Ms. Kelly Madden, down in the front row down there. Kelly, welcome to the commission. And our city attorney, Mr. Drew Weber. Appreciate you being here and helping us out. And Happy New Year to everybody. And we'll get started tonight. And with our first order of business will be our public hearing. And our first public hearing will be the amendment to section 405.050, 405.210, and 605.010 regarding home occupations, Amendment 125, 126, and 127. Mr. Burks, would you like to bring us up to date?
All members, as a preliminary matter for this public hearing, I will ask that the publication notice published in the Warren County Record be made part of the record by reference. The city comprehensive plan and city ordinances be made part of the record by reference. In the planning and zoning officer report be made part of the record by reference. The amendment to section 405.050, 405.210, and section 605.010, the amendment to the home occupation. I can have we had state statute that changed. So as you can see on the report, everything in red has been removed, and everything in black below that report has been added. If you have any questions, the attorney here can explain further.
At this time, we'll ask anybody in the audience in the meeting here tonight if they have any questions or comments or opinions about this public hearing. Hearing none, if anyone has questions, we can bring that up in the open meeting. Our next public hearing will be the Kenara Commercial Subdivision Zone Change -74. Mr. Burks?
As a preliminary matter for this public hearing, I will ask that the publication and notice published in Warren County Record be made part of the record by reference. The city comprehensive plan and the city ordinances be made part of the record by reference, and the planning and zoning officer report be made part of the record by reference. This is the Kennard Commercial Subdivision Rezone, ZC 74. Presley Kennard Revocable Trust has submitted an application for a change in zoning for a 1.26 acre tract of land on the south side of Veterans Memorial Parkway, west of Highway 47. The request is to rezone the area from Agricultural Reserve District to C3 Highway Commercial. A preliminary plat and final plat to create one new lot has been submitted in conjunction with this change in a zoning application. The requests are discussed in subsequent report. The proposal seeks to permit zoning that would allow the consistent commercial development in the area. Further commercial development will have access to existing utility services and access to Veterans Memorial Parkway. The zoning the subject site to Highway Commercial C3 would result in a use development consistent with the comprehensive plan. All items and notices as required by state and local law have been provided and completed. The proposal is consistent with future land use map and the policies within the comprehensive plan. Bart Carmen's here from Lewis and Beatty to answer questions on that project. Any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Burks? Mr. Corman, you want to speak? Oh. Mr. Williams, did you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Step to the podium, state your name for the record if you don't mind.
Okay. Dave Williams. What property is this? Where is this property at?
This is the property that's on the south side of Memorial, just west of 47.
Okay, so it's south of Highway 70?
South of, yes.
Okay, and they're wanting to go with a commercial zoning?
Yes, there is a application for a preliminary and record plat that's in conjunction, and that piece would be agricultural right now, and it would be rezoned to C3 Highway Commercial.
Okay, no residential?
No residential.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Corman, you want to step to the podium? Thank you, sir.
Sure. For the record, Bart Corman, Lewis and Beatty, surveyors and engineers, on behalf of the Presley Kennard Revocable Trust, the owner of the property. It's 1.25 acres just west of US Bank, straight across south of the entrance to Chinooks on Veterans Memorial Property Parkway. And looking at possibly selling that for commercial development. It's consistent with that kind of the corridor to have commercial there. It's actually got enough topography that something could be built there where some of the other Kennard property is not, and is planned to be protected for a long time. But this piece, the trust was looking at being able to sell off for commercial, and so therefore we got to request the zone change, which is what's in front of us now, and then later in the meeting you'll see the preliminary and final plat.
And this is the piece where the house sits there now?
No, there's nothing on this piece. This is basically between US Bank and the lake. Okay. And you want to get down to it, that's where it is.
Is that
So-
the one that has like multiple ponds?
Yeah,
The three
it's
ponds.
next to that.
Yeah,
So
like
this
with the-
piece
with
is
the
all east of that. So if you're pulling out of Chinooks,
Yeah.
it'd be
Yeah,
straight across.
straight across,
So if there ever
So it's
be,
not that whole property all the way down to
it's not all,
Market
it's
Street?
just 1.2526 acres.
So the billy goats are going to stay?
Billy goats are still going to be
All
there.
right.
They are still going to be there, okay? That's very important, very, very important.
Yes, with the donkeys next to
The
them.
donkey and the goats will still be there. We'll have to put a new fence up, but other than that, they'll still be there.
Okay.
But basically, we went down that far so that a commercial development would have an entrance lined up straight across from Chinooks,
Yeah.
basically. So that's the purpose of this.
I tease about that, but in 1990, when I moved here, they were my neighbors. I lived in the mobile home park that was there where the movie theater is, and I used to see those donkeys and the billy goats every day, and so I was teasing, but that is kind of an institution of this community that Mrs. Kennard had those there and stuff. It was really cool.
And the
Thank you,
family
Bart.
intends to keep that like that for a
Sure.
long time if they
That's
can.
neat.
So.
That's neat. Well, thank you, Bart, for
Thank
your
you.
explanation on that. Any other questions for this public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close our public hearings for this evening and open up our public comment section. And the first public comment time is Oak Acres Villas Final Plat Subdivision -106. Mr. Burks?
The Wolf Family Trust has submitted an application for a record plat approval for the 1.22 acres on the west side of Warrenton Village Drive, north of Wolf Road. The final plat is consistent with the preliminary plat previously approved for the subject site by the City of Warrenton Board of Aldermen on August 16 of 2022 with Bill Burr 53-22. The record plat is the final step in the process of subdividing the property. Once the plan is approved and recorded, the proposed lot configuration will be finalized. The preliminary plat showed sidewalks on the east side of Warrenton Village Drive. Stormwater design has been submitted in accordance with the city requirements. Final verification and approval of the design shall be completed prior to the execution of the plat by the city. Completion escrow will be required to guarantee the installation of improvements for the site, sidewalks, and stormwater facility, as shown in the preliminary plat prior to the final execution of the plat by the city. The completion of escrow, for one of the conditions, the completion of the escrow will be required to guarantee the installation of the improvements for the site. Again, Bart Corman's here to answer any questions on this project. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Burks at this time? Mr. Corbin?
Thank you. For the record, Bart Corman, Lewis and Beatty. I do have Clifton Wolf here, Mr. Wolf here with the Wolf Family Trust. This is the record plat. We did the preliminary plat a while back and the conditional use and all that, if you recall. So this is just basically the authorization for the lines to be actually drawn and subdivided. So that's what it is. We're finishing up the construction plans. I'll have that submitted through, and then this will be in with that. So I'll take any other questions anybody may have.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Corman? Thank you, Mr. Corman. Anyone else in the public that would like to speak at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to our second public comment section, and that is Kenara Commercial Subdivision Preliminary Final Plat, Subdivision -107. Mr. Burks?
This is the preliminary and final plat for the SUBD 107 Kennard Commercial Subdivision. Presley Kennard Revocable Trust has submitted an application for a preliminary/final record plat for a 1.26 acre tract of land on the south side of Veterans Memorial Parkway, west of Highway 70. Preliminary plat and application is to create one new commercial lot that has been submitted in conjunction with the final record plat application. Preliminary plat is the first step in the process to subdivide a property. The plan shows a preliminary design of lot and easements required to provide municipal service to the future lot. The record plat is the final step in the process of subdividing the property. Once the plan is approved and recorded, the proposed lot configuration will be finalized. The applicant has requested an expedited review with the preliminary plat and final plat, record plat presented simultaneously as presented by 410.210, Section C of the City Code. The staff would note the following features of the proposed preliminary record plat. Utilities, that's water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, exist on Veterans Memorial Parkway to serve the plat. The proposed preliminary and record plat is consistent with Chapter 410, the subdivision regulations of Warrenton Municipal Code, and the commercial subdivision proposed design future comprehensive plan goals. Bart's here to speak on this project. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Burks? Hearing none, Mr. Corman?
Thank you. For the record, Bart Corman, Lewis and Beatty. Mr. Burks did a good explanation there. We're doing both preliminary and final at the same time because there's no improvements to be done. There's no construction, no infrastructure to put in. That anything that would change would be under a commercial site plan process. But it's one lot there. And so there it is. Pretty simple. We explained it in the rezoning, and I'll answer any questions anybody may have.
Anyone have any question for Mr. Corbin? Mr. Williams, did you have a question? I saw that you kind of looked puzzled there, so I just want to make...
You need to make that a little bit bigger, I can't see.
I know that. We have that discussion all the time.
Okay. Okay, so we're still kind of talking about the same area then, huh?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Thank you for pointing that.
You're fine. You're fine. Anyone else would like to speak on the public comment section of the Kenara Commercial Subdivision? Hearing none, we'll close that part of the meeting and open up our regular planning and zoning meeting for this evening. And our first order of business will be election of officers. Ms. Rue?
Current officers, Rich Barton is chairman, Scott Costello is vice chairman, and Dan Durbin is secretary.
I'd like to nominate Rich Barton as chairman.
Second?
You don't have to have a second for nominations.
Any other nominations? And we'll be patient.
I'll make a motion that we elect Mr. Barton chairman by acclamation. That needs a second.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Costello to elect myself as the president or chairman once again, second by Mr. Cooper. Any other questions or comments? Any other nominations? Roll call vote.
You can do a
Oh,
acclamation, you can do
voicemail.
yay and nay.
All in favor say yay.
Yay.
All opposed? Hearing none, I guess I'll be the chairman once again.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion for vice chairman.
I'd make a motion to nominate Scott Costello as vice chair.
Any other nominations at this time? So, you want to do the acclamation thing again?
You need a first and a second.
Huh?
I'd make a motion to confirm by acclamation.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Cornell, second by Mr. Detterman to appoint Mr. Costello as vice chairman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We'll entertain a motion for secretary.
I'd make a motion to nominate Cheryl Cullum as secretary.
Any other nominations?
I'd make a
Hearing-
motion,
Go ahead.
I'd make a motion to confirm that by acclamation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cornell, second by Mr. Costello to appoint Ms. Cheryl Cullum as the secretary. Any opposition for Ms. Cullum? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. So Ms. Cullum, thank you for serving as our secretary. Mr. Costello as our vice chairman. Any, is that all of, that's all we need for that one? And thanks for everybody else that serves on this board too. We appreciate you guys. Next order of business will be our minutes from the October the 6th meeting. That's been a long time ago. I think we had to introduce ourselves when we got back today. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the October 6th, 2022 meeting as submitted.
Second that?
Motion by Mr. Costello, second by Mr. Cooper to approve the minutes as submitted. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Roll call vote.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Jason Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Durbin? We'll come back to him. Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Priest is absent. Mr. Dieterman?
Yes.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cheryl Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
And then he might be having internet issues because he's not unmuting.
Can you force an unmute on the menu option?
Just an ask. So we'll just go with who we got. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. 8-0.
Okay. And is it okay that she voted yes even though she wasn't here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes 8-0 with one absent and one not being able to connect through the internet at this time, so it'll be 8-0. Next order of business will be the minutes from the October the 12th special P&Z meeting that we had.
I move to accept the minutes
Second.
for October 12th.
We have a motion by Mr. Cooper, second by Mr. Cullum to approve the minutes from the October 12th special P&Z meeting that we had. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Durbin still's muted. Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Dieterman?
Yes.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
I abstain since I was not there.
You could have read them. Did you read them?
No, I apologize.
All right, no problem. Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Is that everybody? Motion passes 7 yeses, 1 abstention, and 2 not present at this time. We'll move on to amendment to section 405.050 regarding home occupations, and amendment -125 that Mr. Burks read to us a little bit earlier. Open it up for any comments or questions from the commission. This is the one where anything marked out was in red there. If everybody's had a chance to look over those.
And you did say that this was just to align with 2023 regulatory requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
The Missouri legislature in last session passed a bill that prohibited cities from imposing permit or license requirements on home occupations. So we had to get rid of all of that. So people with home occupations don't have to tell you anymore. So these new regulations impose some restrictions. It's going to be a little harder to enforce, but they do impose some restrictions that we're still allowed to do.
Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead if you're not finished. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
So in looking at this, and in looking at the follow-up ordinances, is the intent then to require a person that might have a place where they work, but also has a home office, to have to register with the city to work from home with their laptop?
No, so it's kind of the opposite. So previously, the city had a licensing scheme for home occupations.
Okay.
And so the state of Missouri has said you can't do that anymore. So the city can't require any permitting or licensing. So no one is required to tell the city of any sort of home occupation that they have. So, I mean, whether it's a work from home or whether you truly have a business, you're not required to report that.
So a home daycare doesn't have to be licensed with the city or permitted through the city.
If there's someone who's actually living there, then that's correct. And that's the state legislature.
That's some of that local control they like to talk about.
So I have one more question. So I read through the other one that has a long, is this ordinance that we're changing going to be also restricting, or is there any restriction for those who have, like, I don't know, a construction business, for example, and they're home base at home and they're trying to, I don't know, create an extension for their garage to be a shop? I just want a clarification of what we're approving here. What does that mean? Does that mean they're allowed to do that, or they're not allowed to do that?
So they would have to comply with normal zoning requirements. So if, they couldn't encroach onto the side yard setback, for instance. But, if someone had a big lot and wanted to construct a garage and that otherwise complied with the zoning code, then yeah, they could use it, for their home base.
And they don't need to tell the city that this is a business.
Right.
Got it.
Now, there's still vehicle restrictions, which may or may not go away in the future from the legislature, but there's still vehicle restrictions and things like that. But they could still operate the business now.
So, if you have a home business that doesn't outwardly have any indication and doesn't cause issues for neighbors in a residential zone, that's basically going to go on without the city's knowledge at this point. But if someone is operating a restaurant, a food truck from their residence in a residential zone, I'm assuming that our other zoning ordinances would restrict that so that the neighbors would not have to tolerate traffic to a food truck in someone's driveway.
I don't know that that's really a safe assumption. So I think this is a law of unintended consequences. So we have put in restrictions, that say that total number of employees and clients on site at the dwelling may not exceed the occupancy limit for the dwelling. Now, occupancy limits are somewhat high, but the use of the dwelling for home occupation shall not cause a substantial increase in traffic. So that may prevent a restaurant. But we can't just rely on saying, well, the zoning code prohibits a specific use in the residential district, because if it qualifies as a home occupation under the new statutory definition, then the city can apply zoning to prohibit it.
That's shocking.
Wow.
It's shocking that passed, and it's shocking that I hadn't heard of. I mean.
Was that in the last session?
Yeah, went into effect in August.
Good.
Good.
Just checking. Interesting. All right. Any other questions?
So what's within the city boundary? Let me just clarify that. What's within our city boundary? So, like, what I'm understanding is, by law, we have to comply to whatever was passed. Obviously, we adjusted our ordinances to comply to regulatory law. But which one would trump? Like, we might have existing zoning for residential areas that, like, you can't have extreme noise, whatever. I don't know what ordinances we have, but are they still subject to the ordinances that we have existing for that subdivision or neighborhood or whatever that is?
So state law wins, right?
Okay.
In the event of a conflict, state law wins. So now there's things like height requirements and side yard setbacks, those kind of things. Those still apply, because that's not a regulation on the use or on the business, that's a regulation on, specific to that district. So those kind of things still apply, noise ordinances still apply. And we've put stuff in here, in this ordinance to say, to try and keep that house looking the same, even though there's a business operating
Yeah, I saw
in
that.
it. But the use type regulations in the zoning code, like you can't have a restaurant, in your basement, for instance, you can't enforce that anymore.
That is just the
Somebody might
wisdom
have
of our
like a-
state legislature never ceases to amaze me. Goodness.
Just to be clear, there's still other things that apply, right? So building code restrictions apply, so you would presumably have to have fire suppression, I
Right.
guess, if you want a restaurant in your basement. So that kind of stuff still applies. But just from the standpoint of, can we prohibit a use in your home? The answer is no, so long as you're living there.
So we can't prohibit, but we have some area of opportunity to regulate.
Right.
Okay.
If, if someone wanted to claim farming as a home occupation and put hogs in their backyard,
Yeah, that's not inside the house.
well, I know it's not inside the house, but is it prohibited? Can we?
So,
I mean, currently you can't have hogs
right.
in your backyard in
City,
a residential zone.
yeah.
In the city, you can only have, I guess,
Chickens.
livestock type animals in a ag reserve zone. So
Right.
is this
So
changing?
So home-based work, that's what it's called now in the statute, home-based work. And so that's any lawful occupation performed by a resident within a residential home or accessory structure. So that prevents the hog farming.
Right.
argument.
Okay. There used to be a lot of that in this area, and if you lived next to it and the wind came from the wrong direction, it wasn't very pleasant.
Kennel? If I build
I mean,
a,
These are all good questions.
I mean, all of a sudden, dog breeding,
Yeah.
as long as it's contained within a structure.
So again, we're proposing regulations here on can't substantially increase traffic, you can't, have number of employees and clients that exceed the occupancy limit. I mean, there's some of these regulations will effectively prohibit some of these crazy, possibilities. But there will be more intense home-based businesses now than previously.
And Mr. Cornell, on the running a dog kennel question, there used to be, and I don't know that it's ever changed, I don't ever remember this being changed in my time on P&Z, there had been an ordinance that any residence was allowed no more than 2 dogs or 2 cats. And I think that ordinance technically still exists, although there are a lot of people that have more than 2 dogs or 2 cats in town.
It does still exist.
And I would think that that would have some implication for kennel, I hope.
It might.
All right. We could what if this all night, but I think it's
Yeah.
pretty,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the updates for section 405.050 ADM 125.
Second.
we have a motion and a second by Mr. Cullum and second by Mr. Detterman to approve amendment to section 405.050 regarding home occupation, amendment -125. Any further questions or comments? And thank you for all your work on that, gentlemen. Roll call vote?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Dieterman?
Yes.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden? Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0 with 2 absent. Next order of business will be the amendment to section 405.210 regarding home occupations, amendment -126. Looking forward to this one.
I think we pretty well
Wait,
covered
didn't
it
we
all
just-
now.
Was that all in the same thing?
Oh, one more question while
Go ahead,
this
you're
is
fine.
still open.
Yeah.
So for those people that have already a permit from the city to have home base, work, I guess, business. What does that mean today? They don't need it anymore?
Correct.
Good to know, thank you.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of amendment to 405.210 home occupations.
Could I interject with just a quick question?
You may, sir.
The activities of the home occupation shall not be visible from any adjoining street. Could that be written that it can't be visible from any adjoining property?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Good point.
Then you don't have to look over your fence and to your neighbor's
Right.
backyard.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Nothing that would prevent us from doing that.
Well, then I'll change my motion to include the suggested amendment by Mr. Cornell.
Can you scoot that back down where that number 4 was there or whatever? Right there. Does everybody see where we're at? Number 4, the
Yeah.
activities of the home occupation shall not be visible from any adjoining street. And we're going to change that to any adjoining property, which makes more sense.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Costello to approve the amendment with the change from street to property, seconded by Mr. Cullum. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Weber, go ahead, sir.
You want it to be both?
Yes.
Sure.
That's
Great.
probably the best way, yeah.
Yes.
And
Just adding in.
Modify your motion, maybe.
that's why you are here, sir. So we will, Mr. Costello will revise his.
Yes, I agree.
He just added property onto the street.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So we have a motion by Mr. Costello, second by Mr. Cullum, to approve this amendment with the addition of the word property along with the adjoining street. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Yes.
Peterman?
Yes.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullum? Or Mr. Cullum, sorry. Too many
Yes.
Cullums.
Never put it.
Mr.
Yes.
Barton?
Yes.
And Mr. Durbin is not on Zoom, that was somebody else.
Okay, so we have a motion and it's passed 8-0 with 2 absent. Next order of business will be amendment to section 605.010 regarding home occupations, amendment 127. So that's basically what we've been talking about and it just scratched out.
Are we just taking this off? That's the only change? Okay.
Make a movement or a motion to approve section 605.010 ADM-127 as listed.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cullum, second by Mr. Detterman to approve amendment section 605.010 regarding home occupations amendment -127. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mr. Detterman?
Yes.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Next order of business will be the Oak Acres Villas Final Plat Subdivision -106. Mr. Corman, you want to come up just in case there's any questions? Because you'll be up here for a few of them here, so. Yeah.
Camp out?
And we will not drill you about any of those previous comments tonight, so.
It don't matter.
I know.
We're still going to be out of here.
I have a
Hopefully,
question.
yes.
Are we just, this is just the lines, drawing the lines, right?
Yes, so,
Okay.
so yeah, I mean, I can give you a planning and zoning 101, but basically a preliminary plat shows what we intend to do with showing where we're going to try to service sewer, water, how the street layouts are going to be. The record plat creates the tracks, and that's why you don't see a lot of the stuff on the record plat, because it is just truly drawing the lines and creating separate properties.
Okay, thank you.
And this is what is recorded at the county, will be this plat.
Anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns? Entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Oak Acres Villas final plat as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cullum, seconded by Mr. Costello to approve the Oak Acres Villas final plat subdivision -106 as submitted. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Detterman?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Next order of business would be the Kenara Commercial Subdivision Zone Change -74. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Corman while he's up?
I do.
Yep.
So we've already established this is right across Schnucks and just that 1 point something acres.
Yep.
Not excluding the ponds and
Not-
the animals.
None of the ponds, it has
And-
nothing to do with any of that.
Is there, was there any thought of what might be on here, or is that still a question?
We don't have anything nailed down at this time, but it's going to market to something similar to, a small retail store, restaurant, bank, similar to what's there now is what the plan is to market it to, something like that.
You're going to take a Facebook poll to see what the community wants. I can get it started for you.
No, it's okay. I'm okay. But if anybody's interested in a piece of property on
Right.
Veterans Memorial, they can purchase it and then come to this board and see if it can be approved. So,
I'd make a motion to approve.
Just one quick question.
yeah.
So the zone change is first and then the subdivision is second.
Yeah.
And so we're asking to rezone a piece of property so that this 1 1/4 acre lot will be commercial, but it doesn't exist yet.
Should we,
And so when I read the materials prior to the meeting,
Oh, good point.
my concern is, are we rezoning the entire 12-plus acre tract to commercial?
Preliminary record plat is on there.
I know, but I'm just saying,
Listed first.
I don't know how you rezone a tract of land that isn't actually recognized as a subdivided parcel before it
so maybe
exists.
yeah.
Well, does I have to, you have the application, is there a legal description attached to the application that?
Go ahead, Mr. Corman.
Yeah, your city attorney is correct. So there is a description that matches the duplicate location of the platted property that's being proposed. So it is truly
1.2.
zoning that
Rezoning
portion
a
of it.
portion of what is now one 12-plus acre tract.
Right. Yes, and
Okay.
you see that, on occasion, you see that where you have a split zoning on one tract. And,
Right.
whether it's a quarter section line, or somebody said, hey, we're zoning the front 150 foot of frontage along a corridor. So it happens on occasion like that. But we made sure that the description matches the plat, so that there is no overlap when we're all said and done.
And I agree, I mean, you made a comment earlier, the remainder of the property for someone to actually develop that would be a pretty monumental task because of the
Yeah.
3 ponds and the amount of change in elevation and things like that anyway.
Yeah.
But
It would be, and the family wants to preserve its activities as long as possible.
Right. All right, good catch. Sorry for the interruption there.
That was it. I was going to ask exactly what he did, but I was thinking flip-flop the same, but along the same lines. Yeah, that was it.
Mr. Williams, I'll let you have a question if you have one, sir. You want to step up?
Williams, my hearing's not the greatest. I'm getting hearing aids soon. Perhaps my intelligent officer is wrong, but I'm more concerned about the property west of the blue building to Middletown Road. That appears to be in question right now.
No.
No.
Next month.
Next month?
Yep, next month.
I'm at the wrong meeting. I'm sorry I took your time.
You're just getting warmed up.
I apologize.
Yeah, you're
I'll be
fine.
here next month.
You're getting warmed up.
You know how it works, so next month.
Okay, good.
Hey, Dave, it's just advanced recon.
Thank you. All right, any other questions about the zone change, which is what we're working on at this moment? I'll entertain a motion for the zone change.
I would,
Go ahead.
I'd make a motion to approve the zone change from ag to C3 as submitted.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Cornell, second by Mr. Detterman to approve the zone change of the Kennar Commercial Subdivision. Zone change -74. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden? Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Ditterman?
Yes.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Next order of business will be the Kennar Commercial Subdivision Preliminary Final Plat, the Preliminary and Final Plat, Subdivision -107. Anybody have any questions or comments about this? Which is what we kind of been talking about. Hearing no, go ahead.
I'd make a motion to
Okay.
approve the Kennar property preliminary and final plat as submitted.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Cornell, seconded by Mr. Cooper, to approve the Kennar Commercial Subdivision Preliminary and Final Plat, Subdivision -107. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Ditterman?
Yes.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullum?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0, 2 absent. And last but not least, we have number 10 on the agenda, the vacate easement at Hawthorne Square. Who's going to talk about that?
I think our city attorney, if he could give us a brief history of why this is happening, I would
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Pugh. Go ahead, Mr. Weber.
So I don't know if I have the greatest knowledge of the history, but so my understanding is that when this, I guess when this building was built, on the initial plat, there was some language on this easement that kind of goes, what's that direction? I guess southwest to northeast. You can kind of see it on the hash lines there. There was some indication that that was going to be vacated in the future, and it never was. It's a utility easement that runs under the corner of the building. To our knowledge, there's no actual utilities in there. So we're going to vacate it now, which just means the city is giving up its easement rights to that utility easement. So, and under state statute, that has to go to P&Z first.
Good to know.
And so there's no benefit to the city, no real change, just kind of a cleanup on,
I mean,
was never
my
used.
understanding is the city kind of thought it was actually vacated a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
And so then it turns out it actually wasn't vacated, so this is just cleaning that up.
There's an existing sewer line across that easement. When they built the building, they had to move the sewer line around the building.
Okay.
Would we ever have a need to be able to access it?
We can't. It's in the middle
It's
of the
under
building.
the building.
Yeah, it's under the building.
Oh,
The current sewer line runs around the building, so that's what we would need access to. And that easement's
right
already
here.
there, so.
oh, I see.
Just out of curiosity, what brought this up?
They were attempting to sell something,
Gotcha.
some land transaction. They were doing their due diligence on the property.
So this easement is the city easement right now? And so we're vacating it so the property owner can have the easement?
After the new easement was
That's what
put
I'm
in-
trying to understand.
Yeah, after the new easement was put in, the new sewer line, the old one should have been vacated then. It just never was followed
Okay,
through.
so we have a new easement to replace this?
Yes.
Okay,
That was done correctly back in the day when this building was built.
Right.
got it.
And so the easement is just being removed. It's not like anyone else is getting it.
Right.
The property owner is no longer encumbered with this easement.
Very good.
I'd like to make a motion to approve vacating of the easement of Hawthorne Square as discussed and proposed.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cullum, seconded by Mr. Cornell to remove the easement as submitted. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Weber, for your explanation. Roll call vote?
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Dieterman?
Yes.
Mr. Cornell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cullum?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. And all this will come in front of the Board of Aldermen on
January 17th.
January the 17th. Got that, Mr. Quarter? Got that on your calendar? Thank you for being here, Mr. Quarter. We'll close the meeting and turn it over to Mr. Burks for any...
We will have a meeting next month. We have one item for the
I think I know what that one item is.
Right. But just to be, I'll let you know again, but I will be gone on the next meeting, so Mr. Costello will be in charge. Thank you.
Do you have a Valentine trip planned?
No. No, just a one-day thing. Any other questions or comments? Anything
going
for
on?
the good of the group?
What's going on on Kroger? The old Kroger store. Do you know what's going in there?
I haven't heard.
I see people working in there and stuff, and
It's going to be a mercantile outlet store.
I what?
Mercantile outlet.
Yeah, like
Okay.
an overstock thing.
Oh, okay.
And while we're still on the agenda, do we have any updates on gas station down there? I mean, they've kind of quit during here, so,
No updates.
but they're still continuing. I just noticed they haven't had,
on what restaurants going.
right.
All right, do we need a motion to close the meeting? I make a motion to close the meeting.
We have a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Mr. Deitch's not here, we may be here on that, but Mr. Cornell took over. Let's have a second. All in favor, say aye. 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 Thank you for coming out. Good night.